Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book rant. Today I'm going to be covering this book, Farewell, My Subaru, an epic adventure in local living, written by Doug Fine, and copyright 2008. So this is an almost 20-year-old book. This book I purchased at Coas for $8, and I think if I had read this book before purchasing it, I would have paid, $5 or $6. $8 seems like a lot, but it is also half the cover price on the back cover. So the price makes sense. I just don't think I would pay that much for it again. And that isn't to say that this is a bad book. It's an interesting concept. So Doug Fine, he moves from out east to New Mexico to the Silver City area, which is a very beautiful region. It houses it's home to the Gila National Forest and the Gila Wilderness Area, which is the first wilderness area in the entire United States. A wilderness area being a designation that means that no motorized anything can be within that region. So even the forest rangers, when they're modifying trails, they don't use chainsaws because that has a motor. So the wilderness area does not play in this book, but it is fair to mention that. This book is about a man's attempt to move out to the west and then, for the most part, live off the grid. So, what he does for that is that he needs to adjust in his mind to being carbon neutral and being as green or eco-friendly as he can be. And so what he does is, throughout the story, he goes solar. He uses a solar heater for water heating instead of using gas or electric. He uses a latrine that he sets up himself, which composts rather than a plumbing system. He also does away with his Subaru, which has all-wheel drive and is the classic, outdoorsy vehicle. You see a trailhead in Colorado and 50% of the cars there are going to be Subaru of some sort. That's just one of the stereotypes in the outdoorsy field. To get to his property, which is in rural Silver City area, he needs to go down a dirt road. All-wheel drive is necessary for it, or four-wheel drive at the very least. But another aspect is that he has to cross a stream bed. And when he spends his first summer, he experiences a flash flood that floods his stream bed, the stream bed he has to cross to get to his house. And there's, I think, 4 or 5 other families that live past that area. And so they end up setting up somewhat of like a pulley system to get shipped goods over that river, that temporary river, while it's flooded. And another aspect is that he doesn't feel like his Subaru, which his Outback is pretty low clearance. It's all-wheel drive, and so it can go on those dirt roads and in mud, but that low clearance hinders him when he's trying to cross this stream. He also needs just a bit more space because he's starting to bring bigger and bigger equipment to his house. Bigger equipment such as like the water heater, the composting devices. He ends up bringing a goat or two. So he's starting to expand into having more sustainable, self-sustainable living. And to do that, he needs a bigger vehicle. So he gets rid of his Subaru and instead gets a pickup truck. But he doesn't want just any old pickup truck. And so part 3, Converted, opens with this quote: "The use of vegetable oils for engine fuels may seem insignificant today, but such oils may become in the course of time as important as petroleum and the coal tar products of the present time." Rudolf Diesel died 1913. And this is the page. And so he says, "It was 43 days before I could get the Love Subi across the Mimbres River. I couldn't help noticing that Noah only had to endure 40 days in his highly publicized flood. But then he had to clean up after elephants as well as goats. On day 44, as soon as I found my car keys in the ignition and started using fossil fuels again, I decided it was time to do something about my roughly 12,430 gallons of unleaded I'd churned in my 20 years as a driver. One day during the flood, while I was yanking the Pan sisters out of the roses, I'd gotten a call back from a mechanic I'd Googled up in Albuquerque. He promised to assure me, with a simple engine modification, he could have me driving on the waste fryer grease from the local burrito shop. That sounded like too good an opportunity to pass up, but there was a catch. My fuel would be both free and carbon neutral. If, and this was a big if, I was willing to part with the Love Subi and get myself a diesel engine." So then he says, "But thanks to 2 healthy goats, I was on my way toward oil independence when it came to my dairy protein. So if I was serious about kicking unleaded once and for all, I had to take the next step. This meant crossing a few mountain ranges and driving 240 miles north to New Mexico's big city in what I hoped would be the final fossil-fueled road trip of my life." And so then he discusses for several chapters that he's using vegetable oil for this rig, and he makes a deal with a Chinese restaurant nearby so that he uses their discarded vegetable oil, their discarded cooking oil, and in exchange, he gets a couple hundred miles of travel. There's a couple other cool things I like about this book. There's little like blurbs, factoids in a different, like in a text box. So an example on page 19: "If the Greenland ice sheet melts entirely, sea levels would rise 23 feet, flooding out hundreds of millions of people and inundating cities like New York, London, and Shanghai." Comments like that does, and the overall mood of the book goes well to show that this is a bleeding heart, very concerned about climate change, about carbon neutral, about all sorts of things very, very left-wing people are involved with. But unlike most people, he actually has the willpower and the courage to go through with all of the changes needed for what he believes in. And so that's what this book is about. It's a bleeding heart, but he's doing all of the things he says he's going to do, which puts a little bit of like integrity in it that is really appreciable. It's nice to see someone that actually puts their money where their mouth is, and then he makes money putting his money where his mouth is, like this book is income for him. No, though not when I purchased it. The secondhand market doesn't pay the publisher. It pays the secondhand bookstore. So it's a good way to recycle. Honestly, getting it secondhand feels like it's more in the spirit of the book. Another thing I really like about this is there's occasional recipes in here for things that he's making. So on page 59, he is hosting a friend, Natalie, and he has a recipe for Thai peanut chard stir fry with 4 garlic cloves, handful of shiitake mushrooms, a leek, a 1/4 cup pine nuts, olive oil, 8 rainbow chard leaves, a 1/4 cup snow pea pods, a 1/4 cup carrots sliced, 2 tablespoons tamari, a teaspoon Thai red curry paste, a tablespoon peanut butter, 1 lime, 3 sprigs parsley, and then you saute the garlic, shrooms, leek, and pine nuts in olive oil until garlic begins to crisp. Then you add the charred pea pods and carrots and top with tamari and red curry paste. Saute, stirring periodically, until veggies are blazing hot but firm and then remove from heat. Then you stir in the peanut butter, squeeze lime, and garnish with parsley. And give thanks for the bounty and for all kind hearts. There's an interesting factoid here. After a while, it starts shifting away from text boxes about general environmentalism and instead turns to factoids about his farm. So, one on page 141 reads, after going solar, the Funky Butte Ranch used 86 kilowatt hours of grid energy in June 2007. The average American household uses 888 kilowatt hours per month. But then there's other things, there's other recipes, potato, pepper, and onion frittata. There's a really funny factoid here. Estimated population of my county in the year 1000, 9,000 people. Estimated population of my county today, 31,250. And that's on a page where he's talking about the drip system working like a charm for his small farm. And by the end of the book, and this book is only about 200 pages long, he's really getting to a point of sustainability. It takes work, but he is able to make it work as well. And that is one of the fascinating things about this book. I don't like, in a way, it feels touristy towards New Mexico in a way that I'm not really comfortable with. I don't like when my home state is treated as like an off-the-grid destination, or, you know, with all the Native Americans here, a lot of like new age white ideas about New Mexico seep into the area, or oh, it's really cheap living, and with working remotely we can live in Albuquerque or Santa Fe or Las Cruces or Cloudcroft, work remotely, and a lot of that stuff feels touristy. It feels like it sees New Mexico as a setting rather than as a home or as a place to really live. But this book, Farewell My Subaru, really transcends that. He really could have made this story in West Virginia. He could have made it in Montana. He picked New Mexico, and a lot of the struggles he deals with are because he picked New Mexico. And so I really like this book in some ways, and I dislike it in other ways. It feels a bit too left wing for me at times, almost kind of nutty, but it's intriguing that he is able to make that jump from living out east in bigger cities to living off the grid and really making that lifestyle work for himself. So overall, I think it's a good book, and I think if you see Farewell My Subaru on the bookshelves of your local secondhand bookstore, I would recommend picking it up and reading it. It's that entertaining. Anyway, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book rant.